Welcome back, everyone. Again, this is for the same 2000 Nissan Xterra rear-wheel drive. It's two-wheel drive. It has a V6 engine in it, and are going to replace the valve cover gaskets. So follow along. So we're going to start by disconnecting the cables for the throttle position for the throttle. The mount that they sit on, and these are 10 millimeter. Get them off of these clips. And then set them aside. One thing that I did forget to mention is, since we are going to be removing a lot of electrical components, we need to remove the negative battery terminal. That way we don't short or break anything electrical. Now we're going to disconnect all of the intake tubing and necessary parts. There's some clips over here for the airbox. Right. Various electrical connectors. Right. Some hose clamps. All right, need to cut this zip tie. Somebody put a zip tie on there to hold the mass airflow sensor in place. Connectors, now that. It's a 8 millimeter to get that off. There's a hose over here that we can remove. And then be very careful with all these hoses. If you're watching this video, you're obviously working on a 2000 or a similar model body style, and all of these hoses probably are original to the vehicle. And as the heat cycle, some of them become brittle and then tend to break. So I have the luxury of having some in stock, various universal hoses, but for you guys at home that don't have that, I would just caution you and be very careful. So like I said, it's these 4 clips that you find that hold the air blocks in, your mass airflow sensor, 2 hoses here. There's another hose that laid back here. That's a 10 millimeter that you unbolt, and then the one that connects directly to the throttle body. As we continue to move things, disconnect things, now we're moving to the throttle position sensor. There's these 2 connectors. It's a little bit under. Okay. You can use a screwdriver to get in between the sensor itself and the connectors while you pinch, and then rotate so that it can help you remove these. They're a little bit difficult to get out of the way. All right. So from our last video, the evap system hose is already disconnected. We're going to disconnect hoses along the top of the intake manifold. One here. This is not wanting to come out. Seems that the hose has swollen up a little. Can't get it over the edge of where it should just come out. You might just have to cut the clamp and put a new one. man, that thing is on there. Man, that is on super nice. You're gonna probably have to get a new hose for this. Oh, there you go. Whew. And it's a lot of corrosion and buildup right there. All right, now that that one's out of the way, we can move on with our lives. All right, this one seems like somebody had replaced it before, so hopefully it's not as bad. Oh, yeah, that was not bad at all. Okay. Now that was a 8mm, by the way, to get that off. Your application might be a little bit different. I guess it's a 1/4 inch, not metric, which is weird. Good old screwdriver does the trick. Again, when you pry on these hoses, like I mentioned, they're probably the original one. You just be very careful. You wiggle back and forth to break them loose. And then set it out of the way. Okay. So those are all the hoses that we can see for now that need to be disconnected. Now we're moving into removing the ignition, the ignition components. Find a way to label them if you don't have a diagram. The way I usually label them, I go left to right, front to back. So the first one would be number 1. Regardless of what the engine firing order is, I just do this on my own. You can have your own method. 2, whatever works for you. 3, 4, 5, and then 6. When we remove them, we just inspect, make sure that there's nothing out of the ordinary, no broken wires or connections. See if there's any oil in them. Usually oil in the spark plug indicates your valve covers are leaking because there's some grommets on them. And then the last one is all the way back here, which we can probably get to once we remove the intake. These we can just remove. Set them aside. Okay, we're going to disconnect these two brackets here. More than likely a 10. Yep. There is also grounds connected to this, so we're going to go ahead and remove those. So part of this wiring harness that you see here, there's going to be just a plastic clip in the back that you also have to get to and disconnect in order to get rid of in order to be able to remove the intake manifold. Seems like it's zip tied, so I'm gonna have to cut the zip tie. And once we get everything off, I will show you where exactly all these bolts and hoses that I remove from the intake manifold, just so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So the bolts that hold the intake manifold to the lower half or the engine block, it's a 6mm hex that you're gonna need. And the bolts look like that. And it is on tight. So I'm just gonna break them by hand first and then use it to impact. All right, so broken by hand. The impact makes it easier. One thing that I like to do also is put back the bolts where they came out from. That way, you know where they go, one. And then two, some of these bolts are of different lengths, right? One of them, you can't really see, but one of them is longer than the other, right? It helps you from putting them in the wrong place. So, like I said, we are removing them now with the impact and getting them out. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that we're gonna be removing. Let me go ahead and move you guys. These bolts out. All right. So there is going to be a lot of more things that we are unable to see that we need to get out. For example, this hose down here is connected. So we're going to disconnect this connector that I'll show you guys that leads to back here in a second. But we also need to remove this hose that's a little bit hidden from you guys. So the hose that I'm referring to is this one right here. It goes from the valve cover into the back of the intake manifold, right? There's a hose and then this connector right here that we're gonna remove. So I found it way easier to disconnect that hose from this end and pull on it to get it out of its area. This hose right here. Like I mentioned, guys, I'm going to remove everything. When I remove the intake manifold, I'm going to show you all the various connections in the back that you can't see right now. So just bear with me. All right, guys, I finally got this piece out. And in the back, you're going to see the hoses that I had to cut out so that you guys can see what I was dealing with. So these two hoses connect down in the back of the engine, right? So I ended up just cutting them, but you're gonna have to find a way to remove them, right? There's just a little clip, right, where you need to get your pliers in there, and then a small vacuum line also that I had to cut. There's also this connector here, and then this one right here that you need to disconnect. But once you get all the bolts out and disconnect this hose over here, you can tilt the whole intake enough so that you can get access from this side to disconnect this connector and disconnect this connector. From there, you're gonna have to find a way, like I mentioned, to disconnect these two hoses. I'm gonna end up replacing them, but for you guys, you probably have to be careful. These are the bolts that hold the intake manifold in, and these hoses, you actually don't have